okay, throw a cylinder and I'll have you cut it in half and it's even walls and it's a just moderate size, you pass the class. Because it takes 16 weeks for some people to just get thrown, okay? Now, if you get all the assignments done, then you can get a higher grade. But if you can learn to center and open at will, you've learned the essentials, okay? So I'm just kind of trying to get it pretty even, and I am pushing down so it locks onto the bat, okay? And then, again, I take, and I use this to seal the edge. Now note, I didn't put a lot of water on there because if you put a lot of water and it's not sealed, the water sucks in there and then it's hydroplaning and you gotta start over. Okay? So now that it's sealed, I put a little more water and I up the speed a little bit, and then I'm gonna push in and cone up. Okay. And then push down. So left hand, thumb halfway over, right hand locks up, push down. Now, on this next push down, I want to show you a little trick. It makes it way easier to center. So I come back up. Now, the cool thing about centering is if you push past center, but then gradually come back, you'll hit center, but then it won't keep coming. So it's like you can actually over push, and I'm gonna do it right now. So I'm gonna push this way past center and down, but then I'm gonna ease the pressure off. It's centered. So you can like shove the clay way over, but it's that easing as you come back, it's dead on, okay? And I only have to cone it up one more time. Okay. Push down, I'm pushing way past, and I ease up. Center ball clay, okay? Now, if it's not centered, and so ask yourself when you're looking at it, is it doing a little hula? And if it is, it's not centered. Because some people go, is that centered? And I'm like, no, can't you see that? You know, like, so just, if it's doing the hula, it's not centered. Okay, being centered, now think about that word, because that's a big buzzword, you know, being centered. What is it? It means being still. Like in the hipster sense, it means being still, being centered. In ceramics, it means exactly the same thing. Being still. If you are still, like I'm just being still. I'm not saying that's easy, by the way. Like everybody thinks that, oh, that means nothing. No, it means everything. Like it's hard to be still because we're always moving. I mean, that's what we do, okay? So when you are still, the clay has no will of its own. It will become centered because it's just following you. You're still. It goes, oh, okay. If you're kind of like moving and you're following the clay, okay? And that's what happens. People go, oh, and then they're following it. They're not being still. See, if they're being still, the clay will respond and become centered. Okay? So, if you're like, I want to make a bowl that's a little wider, so I'm going to push down a little more. So this is a little lower and wider than that previous shape. And I'm going to make sure that I don't have any junk out here. It's common that you're going to get like goop. So just come in with your cutoff stick and then what I'm doing is I push it in, but then I tap out just barely to pull it away. And when I get it just a little ways out, I flip this and I scrape this really clean. That goop can make you, in a sense, your hand bounce and be off center. Okay, so like by removing it, then you're not gonna have that problem. Okay? Okay, now we're gonna open it, so we just put our hands on either side and we push down with our thumbs, and we're just making a little depression. We're not trying to go way in there. Okay? Here's the thing, whenever you try to go straight down and deep, whether you're opening or using your thumbs, that's when things go, they want to like trap and go off center. So by just making a slight shape that goes like that, like a depression, and then laying your hand and doing that, that slope is actually holding you centered. If you dive too straight, your hand wants to twist, and then you go off center. Okay? So I just hold, and I push down, and I just treat the left hand like I try to make my left hand still or rigid like a piece of wood. Okay? Now, I know it's too deep, like I haven't gone deep enough. Like I'm not going to check because I can see it's like this thick, and I don't want it that thick. So I'm going to go a little deeper. And now, I'm pretty good with it, so I'm not going to use my needle to check, but again, I practiced this a little bit. A little water. Now, I curl or roll my fingers like that, and this creates the floor. Okay?
Is the point of that, this stage in the clay, you want that tubular chunk of wall so that like you can pull up on it?
Yeah, you want a donut of clay. So note, there is a little lip right there to get
to pull it
started. And there's also a little lip right here. So you've got this place where both, whether it's fingers or knuckles, can fit into those two grooves. It's not like this. It's like that. There's an undercut there and an undercut there. Okay? Now, I normally will take this and just push down a little bit to not only get rid of the fill marks, but make sure it's level. But again, this helps make it stronger. Okay? When I compress the bottom with a rib, you are making the bottom of your pot strong. Okay? Think about this. When you go and pinch, and then pinch, and then pinch, the walls get compressed, and then compress more, and then compress more. Incredible compression. The floor, unless you use your rib, it doesn't get the same amount of compression, which means that your wall is more compressed than your floor, and it might crack. By compressing, like really compressing it, now it's equal to the wall, which means the whole structure is like, and when you do your little finish with the rim, you're compressing the rim, again, making it strong. Okay? Okay, so now I'm going to put a little water in there, and I'm going to pinch, and I'm actually going to slow this down just a tad. Now, my first two pulls are going to be just vertical pulls to make a cylinder. But because I'm making a bowl, my third pull is actually going to be toward me. Bowls are the easiest shape to make because you're using centrifugal force, which wants to push the clay out, and ergonomically, holding your shoulder to make a cylinder is like not human comfortable. You can do it, but it's not really like what we do. A bowl is like we do that, like well, okay? So, left hand inside, always, right hand outside, always. And whether I'm here or here, it's good. I'm going to put it here because it's easier for you to see. Now I pull gently, I'm just squeezing up. I'm following that surge up. Okay? Clay doesn't move far because I'm not pushing too much. Okay? When I get to the top, I actually am pushing down to make it more even. And then I'm going to slow it down a little bit. And then I'm going to put more water on it, and I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to pinch in again. Okay. Okay. so now I'm going to use my rib and my hands. Actually, I'll use my hands first, but I'm going to just pull toward me, not straight up. And then, this is where I'm going to use my rib, and I may use a combination of ribs. I'm going to definitely use this green one, which is pretty rigid, and then this wood one, which is wood, it's rigid, okay? Now, I'm going to turn this down a tad. And basically, I'm going to start at the rim and go down instead of at the bottom and work up, okay? And so, I'm just going to take this angle, and I'm just pushing out slightly and kind of bracing on the outside, not dramatically, but my left hand is sort of acting as a brace down there. And then I come back up. Okay? And then I get this one wet. Slow this down a little more. Now, one of the things that's happening is, as I push out, it's getting wider. When it gets wider, the speed it takes, it is going faster because it's a greater diameter. Mm-hmm. Even though the wheel isn't changing speed, the diameter is making it faster, and that makes it harder to deal with as a potter. Mm-hmm. So often when you're making bowls, as it opens up more, you may want to be ratcheting down the speed because it's accelerating. Mm-hmm. Okay? So I hope you notice that I'm gradually taking this out. I'm not just like shoving it over, because if you do, that tends to create like an S curve that makes it want to collapse. But by gradually moving out, but I'm not pulling anymore, I'm just making these like, I'm pushing, but remember, that also makes it thinner. So like the cylinder that I pushed out was actually thicker than a regular cylinder because I knew I was going to make it a bowl. And when I get down to the very bottom, now that I'm really at the floor, I'm going to take the rib and change the angle and go against the floor to really make what little seam that's showing just disappear. Now, looking at bowls is difficult. I mean, you really need to kind of get over here and look at the profile, and it can look really good from this angle, and then when you look at the profile, it's like, this isn't so good. So, you know, be aware of that and be willing to lean over a far push, you know. what's happening, which I'm gonna, in a sense, stop in a moment so that I don't have an issue, is I have this little bit of overhang that when I trim it, it's gonna be pretty clean right here, but if I keep working on it, it may collapse. But I wanna trim it, and so that's good. I'm gonna use this last rib. This soft rib just really helps refine the surface. Do the same thing as before. I take my cutoff stick and I cut that little bevel at the bottom. And I'm not going to go in and take a lot of clay off the bottom. I'm going to wait until I trim this.